And to a large degree, this is part of the reason why. I mean, investors are looking at the moment for some kind of security. They want good quality product in good liquid markets. The Australian markets aren't as big as some of the others in the world, but they're mature, they're transparent, they're liquid, and also look at the yields. It's difficult assessing prime yields accurately around the region, but here are some comparisons with different major markets, and what you can see is that there's a big difference in the yield that you are paying for good quality product, if you can get it, and it is still a challenge here, but there's a big difference in the yield that you're getting from product here in Australia compared with elsewhere in the world. And I think that that's really, although the challenges are quite clear, and there's concern here about, the outlook for China and what's happening in a two-speed economy. Everywhere you look in the world, investment at the moment is a real ugly contest. Nowhere offers great opportunity, fantastic value for money, and looks cheap. And in the context of the sort of challenges that you face, have a look at what everybody else is having to deal with. And I genuinely believe that the Australian market offers real opportunity here. Clearly, some of the challenges that are faced by international investors is the strength of the currency and the hedging costs associated with that. But from a domestic investment point of view, I certainly have the impression that if you're thinking medium term, if you're looking at where Australia is going to be positioned in the world and where Asia is going to be positioned in the world, this chart tells a tale that there is a real opportunity here, particularly for domestic investors for whom the currency issue, getting debt can still be a problem, but the currency issue is rather less of a challenge. And I think here it's quite interesting just to look at what's happened to yields in just a selection of markets. You can see why people are getting concerned about the Hong Kong office market or even the Singapore office market and their benchmarks for elsewhere in the region. Look where Shanghai is here. Since 2009, we've seen a material decline in office yields as investors have really tried to focus on secure prime product in growth markets. Look at what's happened in London, look at what's happened in New York, and look at what's happened just using Sydney and Melbourne as Australian benchmarks. The differential is now much wider, and I think that's why we're going to continue to see certainly some investors from around the world looking very, very closely at the Australian market. So in closing, what do we expect to see? Well, I'm afraid that uncertainty and lack of conclusion of a lot of the challenges that we see is going to be something of a feature not just of the next few months, but of the next few years. We said it was going to be a slow and bumpy recovery. I think we're now realizing quite what that means. There's still lots of threats out there, but if we do get some sort of resolution of some of these, or at least we don't get them turning into full-blown crises, we were saying, well, maybe we'll see an improvement in sentiment coming through in the second half of this year. I have to say, I think it's now more likely that improvement is not going to be coming through until the early part of next year. But what I am still absolutely convinced about is that Asia and Asia Pacific will benefit first, and it will benefit most, and it will probably benefit longest from any recovery, whatever that looks like, as and when it starts to happen. We will certainly probably see quite a sharp pickup in occupier activity as companies move from putting profits in the bank to survive a crisis to putting those profits to work in order to invest in their businesses. Asia will certainly benefit from that. And I think this feature of Asian and Asian Pacific capital being a more important feature of our market rather than simply Europeans and Americans coming in and buying product in Asia, I think that is a trend that is certainly going to continue. A very, very brief overview. But I hope that that's given some context to now move on and look in more detail at what we're seeing here in Australia. So with that, I'd like to welcome our Head of Research for Australia, Stephen McNabb, to take us through the outlook for this market. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick.